Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Roundtable Live with me, Jimmy D, and Corey, and our Eden on EOS guests, 3 of 4. There might be one more joining. So we welcome back Chris Barnes, Joshua Seymour, and first-time guests on this show and on this Roundtable, Myra Wang. How are you guys this morning?
Awesome.
Super good. Thanks for having us.
I like having Myra on the stream because she's actually at nighttime with me, like on the right side of the world instead of the left, you know. When you look at that globe that spins, if you spin it in any direction, it still separates into right and left equally. Of course.
Do you need some coffee or?
No, it's good. So Corey, you just got back from a business trip. You were away when this whole second community election happened. So you missed it. But we had the second community election, and Amy Haynes, I guess was the kind of the champion of that. So we're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into the differences. But first, Myra, being as you haven't ever been on the show before, can you just give us a quick introduction? Who are you? What do you do in the crypto space?
Okay, great. So I was into EOS at beginning. I have to say that at beginning, I'm a Bitcoin miner. Basically, I'm helping the Chinese to helping them build up the mining machine. And actually, this build it's called a container, so they're easy to move. For example, if China right now have the policy, they can't mine anymore. They can easily use the container to Canada. So at the beginning, I'm doing Bitcoin mining. For the EOS, it's a big role. So as you can see, I was in the EOS Alliance before. It's mainly exactly like Eden EOS. It's about governance. After the EOS space, I opened my own marketing company on blockchain in Shanghai. And so I have like 7 to 11 employees. With this bull market, it's increasing. So what I basically do is helping the project marketing in China, not only build a community, helping them write the social media, events, and representative. So the brand is called theboss.io. So not only use, but now I'm also working like 99% on blockchain.
Yeah, and so actually, for those of you that might not know Myra, I've worked with her on maybe 2 or 3 different projects, and she might be one of the hardest workers in the space. She's like head down, crazy, you know, just doing awesome things. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Myra. It's great to connect with you again. So yeah, I guess there was an election. So, I stayed up until about 2 o'clock my time in the morning to actually participate. I guess that would have been 1 a.m. for Myra. For you guys, it was 12 o'clock p.m., I think, on Saturday afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, or something around there. I thought that was like the worst possible time everywhere in the world for that election, personally, right? Like I had friends who were like, no, I'm going to be on a boat. It's summer with my friends. You know, I can't like give up that family time. Or what did you guys think? Chris, Josh, were you okay? Did you think it could have been a better time? Like I'm sure Myra did because it was 1 a.m.
I have a lot to say. It's first of all, it's a competition. So you need to have the will to present, okay? So can you imagine right now, because in the show, I need to make up this moment, for that election night, it's the same. So when it's until the second round, third round, it's biology clock. It's telling me that you need to quit, go either wrap it up somehow. So it's like, I do think the time is tricky. And because it's automatic, it's not me, it's not my willpower, it's the word, the galaxy told you to say, go to sleep, just quit, wrap it up fast, let them win. Somehow I do think the time is really tricky. I do think right now, I heard about, we have so many BP meetings 1300 UTC or 1400 UTC is fair for all the world. So I do think if there's a real election, please change the hour.
Yeah, so I'll get into this a little bit more later, but there's supposed to be 4 people in each group, and there was only 3 people in my group, and nobody really wanted to go through, and we actually called in for help because we were like, what do we do if there's only 3 people? Like, do we continue? And Dominic said, well, I mean, if there's 2, it's a problem, but if you have 3, it's okay. And he said, well, I mean, like, if one of you wants to run, I'm like, I don't really want to go through because it's like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I have to get up when my wife's working tomorrow. I have to get up with my daughter at 6 a.m., right? And like, I kind of got a little bit of flack for that. It's kind of like, well, yeah, I understand. You have to get up with your daughter. Like, no, like seriously, like if I go through all 4 rounds, it's going to be like 5 a.m. in the morning, right? So I totally understand what you're saying, Myra. It's like
the point is my brain is frozen, you know, I'm like a zombie. When there's some vocabulary didn't come out, there's some words I was some point I'm just like frozen, you know.
Right.
It's not the best behaviors.
Josh and Chris, what did you guys think about the timing? A Saturday afternoon in the middle of the summer. Would you do it differently, or were you totally okay with it?
Well, I mean, for me it was fine, but all things in context, like with the international community and everything, I do think that the time zone that is normally agreed upon, it's what it should be for official elections. Yesterday, some people in the community have been suggesting that maybe we should break it up over days, so it's not like a 4-hour experience for someone, or could even be longer if there's really a lot of people. And Dan does seem to be open to spreading it out over the course of a few days. And he said the most important thing is just that everyone shows up for the first round, as far as like Sybil attack goes, because you can't be in 2 places at the same time. So if you show up for that first round and you do advance, then that, like, the software is able to handle that, and you would just show up for your next round. And it could really change the dynamic, but I do agree that it would probably be better to cater to the time that is sort of known. I don't know why it was not that time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like you bring up a really good point, right? Like if you could just do it over the course of 3 days at the same time every day, it might be a little bit more manageable. I know, like, so that was one of the issues for me is like, just, I think 4 hours would have killed me, right? Like Myra said, right? But yeah, I don't know, like so Myra, I don't know about you, but I know, Chris, you went through to the end. You were the second place winner this time, although they kind of changed it a little bit. Like it wasn't necessarily a full out vote with consensus this time. Do you want to maybe go into that and explain what changed from this election, from the last election to this one?
Sure. Yeah. And, thanks for, Myra and Jimmy for doing what you did there, because knowing that you had to get up at 6 for your daughter, I've had a young daughter and son, and that's no joke. So, you need some sleep and some prepared patience for those early mornings. So yeah, good for you. And same for you, Myra. Like that's like you say, these are hard. These are like a marathon. You need to be sharp. You need to be thinking, and English not being your first language, I'm sure as well, extra hard to try to say the right things, and you need to be persuasive. So good for you for trying, and hopefully future, the actual official election, which might be the next one, is a more suitable time zone. And like Josh said, it won't all be a marathon, hopefully. I think there's enough people who are realizing it's maybe better to spread it out so people can be sharper, more time to prepare, more time to look at the projects. If you move on to the second round, you'll get a chance to review then what projects are going to be there in advance to be better prepared. So there's less time spent pitching and more time spent debating and coming to consensus about the best project. But the difference this time at the end was, instead of the very first trial election, the winner was selected via consensus by those in the final round. So the final round delegates, there were 4, came to consensus around who the winner was going to be. And then that person became the symbolic leader of the board or the final round of delegates, and they received the maximum funding. But this time it was changed where sortition, or basically a random selection from the final round of delegates, chose the winner for the money. So Ami won the random sortition vote. It wasn't even a vote. He ran the random pick. So he received a 2,000 EOS. But then Dan also asked that the final round also came to consensus around selecting a symbolic leader of sorts. So that's where we still had a debate. We still, the final round delegates still spoke for 50 minutes and came to consensus around myself again. So very humbled and thankful for that. And so I was sort of voted for that role. It was only symbolic, however, and had no additional funding associated with it. And the funding piece was randomized to Ami.
Okay, yeah. So what did you think about that randomization thing? Like, I thought it was a little bit strange personally that you would do that. I guess maybe they did that to add another layer to prevent collusion, maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, Josh, I'm sure he has some opinion, but Dan, we had a call with Dan yesterday. I'll be posting that later today on the Eden on EOS YouTube channel. So that'll come out later today for people to have a look. But it's to prevent someone from basically winning over and over again and potentially capturing the system. And it worked, because I may have won 2 times in a row and shown that this thing can be gamed and captured. And the whole point is Dan wanted to create this so that not even he could win. And via the random bit at the end, no one's guaranteed to walk away with the prize. I don't know. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense if we're talking about federal governments or something, and you have many layers, and you have a lot of people that bubble up, and you really get just top quality folks at the last round. And not to say this isn't, but here I don't know if it's necessary, but I certainly see the point, and I'm more than happy to have Dan make the rules and curate this baby so it comes out as he hopes. So I think it worked out. I'm super happy that Ami has this opportunity to run with his project, because I probably wouldn't have voted for him. Like, I don't know if he would have, if had it been me with the funding, he may not have had enough I would have tried to split the 2,000 EOS across all the gentlemen at the end. And I mean, he may not have ended up with enough to actually execute on what he wants to do. And now he can. So.
Yeah, Corey, Chris almost spoiled our plots of world domination. He almost took the prize home twice. That's our whole, second part of our running platform.
Honestly, I think, hey, Chris Barnes, just plug yours for a minute. I think we just need to co-opt that guy. Like, bring him in and be like, hey, world domination. I mean, that other thing we were talking about that's so important. I forgot what it is. Oh, the voting app. I remember now. It's not world domination. I would never be for that explicitly.
So this is what happened, right? Yeah. I mean, this is what happened in our group. So there were only 3 people. One of them was a tech guy, and he wasn't really interested in going through. I had told Chris and a few other people, pretty much everyone in Eden, I told them, I said, this is the situation I don't want to be in. I don't want to be in a group where I'm tired and everyone pushes me through, and because I don't really have time to deal with this. And I refused to become a part of Eden because of that. And it was John Heater who convinced me that you don't have to go through. Right? So I said at the beginning, I said, I'm not going through. The third person in our group happened to be a person who not only was English not their first language, but they couldn't really speak English very well. They could understand, and in the end, we figured out that if we were using a translator, through the phone. Another problem that we had was that apparently they couldn't access the document to put the votes from China. They were having problems accessing it via their Wi-Fi. And so basically we were kind of in the back room laughing, because we're just like, okay, do I share the screen and make sure that you okay it while I type this through on the document? And basically it just got to the point where we were sitting there spinning our wheels, and I decided, okay, you know what, screw it. We're just sitting here. Nobody wants to go through. Nobody's talking, right? So I'm just going to say mine and Corey's idea, what we would do if we were running. So I said that, and then, the other dude, he's just like, hey, yeah, maybe you should go through. And I'm like, I don't want to go through. And then so we're just like, okay, we should go through. Okay, screw it. Fuck it. I'll go through, right? I'll just do it. I'll go through. And so then we put our names on the document, and then I realized that nobody had recorded it. So I was like, oh, nobody recorded it. So I'm not even sure if I can go through, right? And so that's why when you saw the document, it's like Kansai Crypto's gone through, but then beside it, it basically said there's no recording. So like I was basically not able to anyway. But it was funny, like it was interesting. But I basically ran on what Corey and I said. We could use the funding to build an app to plug into something like the Uplift, to create a plug and play governance structure, to take the kind of human equation of like how messy things could be out of it, and just have a plug and play app that people could like put up proposals, designate, vote for, have it all built out. And because that's what we want to do with our Uplift World sectors anyway, is we want to have this kind of semi-governance structure in place where they get to make their own decisions. And it's funny because the only reason I brought it up was I was sitting there and I was just like, this really needs to be like, this whole process needs to be, it's great that we have the human equation in here, but it needs to be fixed, because it's like, I'm sorry, but like, it was a mess, right? We're sitting there and for 20 minutes waiting for new people to come in. People are dropping out. People are getting left off the call. There's this timing thing, right? Like there actually, in my mind, doesn't seem to be any reason why you couldn't have it as smooth as like you could upload your proposal beforehand and then go into your groups for 15 minutes and explain the proposal or play the proposal, and then you could vote yourselves through, right? Instead of having to have all of these things that have to magically align, people getting kicked out. I know there were a couple people that wanted to go through that they lost the Zoom link. Like there's all of these things that technology seemed to be causing the problem. So I thought that was funny. That was my proposal, what I would have run for. And actually, I might run for it, in the proper election or election down the road. We didn't really have a game plan. It was just me and Corey shooting the shit one night, and we decided this would be a really good idea. And I still think it would be a good idea. I think it's an even better idea after I sat through the election and saw all of these issues, right? So, but I'm curious, what did you guys run for? Maybe let's start with Joshua. Did you go through, and what was your proposal? What did you run for?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, there will be, I guess, a stronger technology component for the next one, most likely, unless there's maybe a manual one that happens, because what Clarion team is working for to operate the elections through the member portal is almost ready to use. So that would be an interesting next experiment if that's the case. And it's looking like there may be another election in early September, but it's not been announced yet. So for me, the first round I started off, 2 people didn't want to advance, and myself and one other person did. And he was a pretty strong competitor, I would say. The 3 main things that I came prepared, I had pitch decks and everything. One of them was the Eden proxy that Chris is leading out on. Another one is another Eden member, Randall Rowland, been around for a long time, probably a bit of an EOS whale. I don't want to dox him. But he's been leading out on EOS support, and that's a customer support initiative for EOS that can be used in a lot of different ways, and it's just in many ways it's being kind of self-funded right now. And those 2 didn't really require a lot of money per se. It was just sort of like raising awareness and a symbolic gesture. So the main project that I wanted to donate the money to was Greymass has a big list of projects behind the scenes, and one of them that I helped spark conversation about was, I'm calling it a user management system. It's a pretty large project, and there's many components to it, and Greymass thought that the next logical step would be to develop the profile component, and so the money wouldn't be enough to complete it, but it'd be enough to start it, and again, like a symbolic gesture to Greymass. And so those were like my 3 main projects that I mentioned. And the other thing that I pitched was sort of myself, that in the first election I was relatively unknown or completely unknown. Since then I did a lot of deep dive discovery, immersion, and networking, and I'm involved in many focus groups. At this point I really have a thumb on many things going on, and I'm continuing to do that. And so my pitch was, I'm going to continue to move these things forward regardless of the outcome of this election. And and I probably have more time to commit to this than anybody else in the room, as far as like being a representative and continuing to do what I am doing. So more or less that was my pitch, and the competitor stayed strong, voted for himself, and the other two ended up voting for me. So I moved on to the next round, and in the next round, all of us were candidates. So that's a totally different dynamic, and we went around the room, heard everyone's pitches. We knew it was important to come to consensus. That's the kind of the first thing you have to focus on, because if you don't focus on that, you'll start to get toward the end and maybe you don't come to consensus, or like you're in like a weird situation. So you really have to prioritize coming to consensus, which means you don't really have a lot of time to pitch each other things too much. I think there is something to be said for people being aware of stuff before they get in a room with someone for this thing to really work. I would have to watch the replay to remember how the dynamic went, but I ended up it was a unanimous vote to move me on to the next round. And I did, along the way with every competitor, I did pledge to reach out to them, understand what's going on with their projects so that I could have the information to represent them in the future, because there's going to be plenty of funding for plenty of projects, large, small, medium. And people are probably just going to show up with a list of like, this is where my budget's going, and people are generally aware of that stuff or aware that you're connected to those things. So went on to the next round, which was the final round this time, and so I was one of the 4 final ones, and then we went through the process that Chris described, where we had to choose somebody to represent the board, and Dan was right. An incumbent would have been voted in, but because of sortition, he, as far as the money goes, it didn't go that way.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I like that. So you ended up making it to the second last round, I believe, right?
I think it's just the final round. There was only 3 rounds this time, I believe.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was sleeping.
Yeah, Josh is in the final 4. He's in that group, so he's been an integral part to organizing. Like, yeah, Josh is. I'm grateful having you on that group, because I think we're going to be extra effective as a final 4.
Cool. Myra, let's do you next. What did you run on? I know you made it through the first round. I'm not sure what happened after that with you. Are you? Oh, I think you're muted, Myra.
Okay, thank you for asking. So when today you asked me about this interview, because we were always talking about on your show. So today I really putting into like a chat. I imagine it's like chat with friend. So I'm actually only be myself and saying the truth. It's like I was hesitating to participating. Do you understand? Like I've been to the first round. It's like, you understand, for the Asian culture, we're more like polite, like konnichiwa, like really polite. Like you want to get it, you get it. It's like, so when the first time you're having this kind of fierce competition and people attack you by your loop, it's already kind of timid. Somehow the community saying, please join, because Jimmy, you need to understand, we're in the space since the day one. With money, without money, with funding or without funding, we're the person who putting actual efforts. We're putting money. You're involving few projects where we're working on with. We have been already working on few projects. We're opening our own pocket to paying the writers, editors. There's a group we have been managing. I send it here. It's EOS China Telegram. Inside used to have 30,000 active users, but somehow, because last time the problem of the hacker of the DeFi product left some. So right now I have 13,000. And we have our user, which is WeChat. That is China only social media chatting system. It's called WeChat. There have 8,000. So altogether have 20,000 member. Inside have 10 admin. So all these 2 years without the bear market, we're trying to make a ecosystem ourselves. Like if block one don't pay, if no one pay, how could we make a living? So inside it's more like a DAO. They have like 10 admin where keeping some money from Start EOS, keeping some money from some wallet, token pocket, they donation some money. So we are making an ecosystem to run. Let EOS run itself. Like EOS Go, and people pay, and we write articles to pay the writer. So it's like an ecosystem. Although Block One don't give, the community don't give, but somehow we make a living by ourselves. So the community say like, go, we must go into and keep, this is the time. So I'm actually representative. I'm basically the only person who can talk a little bit English, good, understand a little bit better. So I have to go. I feel like I have destiny to go. So when I go, I do explain my point, say this is a 2 year, because there's some, you need to understand, like we're working for 2 years for free, day and night, without any complaint. So at some point, because right now had a bonus, people show, the people before disappear now come back, say, I have a new idea, I bought a domain, I want to do something. But my point is like, actually, we're doing it for 2 years. So no matter 10 years and 200 years or 2,000 years, we do think, because we already managed make a living without no money. If give us like 1,000, we can make better, because we proved to the community that we have the delegation and the energy level and having the strength and the smartness to make a living by ourselves without any money. So I made my point, like right now what we do is community and social media. So but it's like a debating, so it's more like how to say, like how the run the president is something I have never experienced. So people attack me like, oh, so you mean you want to give the money to Telegram group? I say actually no. So somehow my loop exposed, so I wasn't prepared. I have to say, like, I really worship Chris. You did great job. I saw some people have a presentation, did good. I like this 2 trial. At least you let me really understanding, like, oh, what it's really like. I actually feel bad because at beginning, when you have all the meetup, everyone is like friends. Now somehow it's like everyone attacking each other to push each other to keep the money. Feel like, Japanese movie, they can have it's called like I don't know how to explain, Jimmy, the Japanese movie, like all the school and they kill everyone, finally had one person to survive. What's this kind of movie. So I do feel a little bit timid, but I do also happy that I see a lot of new blood running into use. So it's good thing. Yep. So my proposal is like, we did it before, but somehow I fell. I'm not sure if I'm going to run the next one, because the Chinese communities really suggest maybe we should open our own Eden, so we can really speak out what we really mean. So it's really on process. Today I'm here just to complain. I mean,
yeah, but I think there does probably need to be a Chinese Eden, right? There is a really big community, but I think one of the things as an individual, Myra, that you actually bring to the space, which is one of the reasons I really respect you, is you've got a good perspective of both the East and the West. And I see you, working with the EOS Go team, with the EOS Asia team, sometimes with EOS Nation, on the Vigor platform, on the other EOSX DeFi platform, to try to bridge that gap between East and West. And I think you do a really good job. So I just want to note that it's really difficult when, I've worked with you, and sometimes you and I have had disagreements, because the way that the East runs and the way that the West runs is very, very different, right? Like there's very different company structures. There's very different voting models. There's very different like social media structures. So I think that's a really good experience. And honestly, I don't speak Chinese, but you were probably the perfect person for that job, Myra, honestly. So I really hope that you do it again. And I mean, you must have done something right, because I think you went through the first round. You got through to the second round, right? So they must have really liked what you said on some set, right?
Thank you. For the first trial, like I'm not able to having the consensus to support myself. I'm so polite in the first, trial. So after I learned, when I go, my advisor told me like, you should stand up for your point. if it's your point, you stand up for it. I say, okay, I'll stand up for it. So second time I learn. So I do improve one section. So I do learn a lot from Chris. I really like how you do the presentation and how you really involve. I don't know where the energy come from. And you seem to have a lot of energy, and bold. I really like the words brave and bold. I think you have all the great characteristics.
It's really nice of you to say, Myra. I appreciate that. And yeah, energy. Passion is I have too much sometimes. There's maybe
I can see.
You can be overly passionate, and I don't rest. So to my own detriment maybe. But thank you. I really appreciate your kind words.
And how about you, Chris? What did you run on? And because I know you said actually you were kind of okay to not get the 2000 EOS because you can do what you want with just the 100 or 150 that you were awarded with, right? So.
Yeah, technically, I really only needed 5 EOS. That's the cost, or maybe 10, because I'm going to start two proxies.
Big, you're a really big spender over there with that 10 EOS.
Hey, yeah. I mean,
it's like Dan. I don't need the other 1950. It's okay. Just give me 10.
Yeah. Well. It's dependent on the projects, and we,
right.
The having an Eden members approved proxy, I think, is a really valuable asset that the community can use. My pitch was trying to aggregate, like since I started into this Eden thing, it's reigniting the fire and the spirit that EOS first had when it launched, and 3 years later, I think we can all agree that the sentiment has been low, and we're kind of becoming fractured, and things didn't turn out as we had hoped. And so I haven't given up. I think there's a chance we can revive that fire, and we need to bring the community back together and aggregate our voice to have the most power possible. And in a delegated proof of stake system, we do that through token votes and through our weight. And let's bring us together, have a common vision, and we can do that under a proxy, and let's help influence the block producers. I mean, I'm not pointing any fingers that there are bad block producers, but let's at least start to work together. I feel like we're not necessarily in sync anymore. And one of the main principles in Dan's book is the idea of aligning ourselves where 1 + 1 can equal 3. So if we can take the community and we're all doing our separate thing in different directions, and we can just all push in the same direction, even just for a while, doesn't have to be forever, but we can move a great distance if we can all just push in one direction for a little while, get this train kind of back on track, and I think EOS can still become what we all had hoped it could become. So that was my pitch, and it was compelling. It doesn't require a lot of cost for now. It's just more time and energy I'm going to reach out to every single block producer, and in an open, collaborative, extended hand, no finger pointing, no judgment. I'm not judging whether voter kickbacks is a good or bad thing. I'm not even going to try to dip my toes into whether sock puppets are good or bad things. I don't want to have any opinion. I want to just collect data, present it to the community, try to present. I think there's as Myra, I'm going to reach out to you because I think you might be very helpful for me in this, and just trying to bridge this gap between the East and the West. I've never been to China. I'm not familiar with the culture, but I want to learn. I don't want to impose my Western way of thinking onto another culture, some sort of superiority, like I'm better. I want to figure out how does it work for you, and how can we work together? How can we realign ourselves so even though we might have differences, we can still push in the same direction? So I'm going to extend a hand, try to get to know the BPs, try to do some content, do some interviews, do some videos to explain what some of these BPs are doing that maybe we don't know about in the West, and then present that to the Eden members. And then we're going to basically use the Eden members' subjective views of block producers on a tool by EOS Costa Rica called eosrate.io. And that's where anyone with an EOS account can log into this tool and rate the block producers on 5 subjective metrics. And then the outcome of that, I'm going to filter for just Eden members, because I think Eden members have shown more dedication than the average token holder towards EOS. They've gone through the trouble of joining Eden. The whole premise is to improve the EOS ecosystem. So I'm going to heavily weight their opinion, more so than just objective metrics about what block producers do, and use that to then vote for the 30 BPs that this proxy will vote for will be based on those subjective opinions. And if the community gets behind that, I don't know how this is going to go. But if the community is as big as maybe I hope it is, that might collect a lot of votes, and then we can actually have influence. And it's not just and it's influence in a collaborative way. It's hey BPs, why don't you consider working with us on this, and why don't you consider this? And then that will then help the Eden members want to have their subjective view of you improve. So you become amongst this top 30 that we will then vote for with this proxy. So yeah, that's the goal. It's a community building exercise that I'm going to keep on, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
I like it. There's only one major problem with most Asian block producers, especially East Asian block producers. And that's that they're like incredibly technical, dedicated, but also incredibly shy to appear on camera. I've worked for block producers in Asia that refuse to come on our show. It's nuts. I'm like, come on the show. No, I can't do it. So
they can't because two reasons. One is risk reason. You know, we don't in China we do crypto. It's dangerous. So far, China. Now, right now, China gives so many rules. You know, very easily to be kept by police. Like I'm the person who protect there so much. Like I care about my carbon footprint so much, but somehow we've been defined as criminal. You know, it's like I somehow most of the founders, CEO, we don't want to be actually in the show because we don't want to show, you know, some of their profile is a manga, never be themselves, their social media is closed. Yes. Second of all, reason I believe is because we're practical. It's like as long as we have the bonus, so we have our job done, it's okay. And we're so humble, we don't want to be exposure like something.
Yeah, there's a few of those in the West too. Like it's easier for us to force them out in the West than in Asia, right? So
I want to work. If that's the case, then no pressure. Like I'm not imposing any particular way about doing this. Even if it can be a written, I'll speak. If they'll talk to me, at least I don't have to record it, but I can do a written summary. I can still create content based on that. They could have a delegate maybe that can speak on their behalf. But the idea is just to make contact and try to have a dialogue. And the form of the dialogue, I'm absolutely open to. It doesn't need to be video, but dialogue is dialogue. And that will be a win regardless of how I can achieve it.
Yeah, you should definitely hit me up for General EOS. We'll talk. We'll figure something out there for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Corey, do you want to do some gratitudes, but take a little bit of a break here from this heavy East-West discussion?
Right. We can do that.
And so please stay tuned for a message from our sponsor, Uplift Tower. Da-da-da. Dun, da-da-da.
It's a beautiful tower.
Jinx.
Sorry, I only put up 3 blocks.
But it's never leaving. Like that's so great.
Sorry,
it's gonna be the way it is forever now.
I was having fun.
You did what you had to do.
Miss Team Crypto and I were having a great time, and we were just chatting, and I was just like, oh man, screw it, I'll just put up 3.
There you go. And like that's the only one of its kind. Talk about rarity.
All right. Yeah, who wants to go first?
I'm still thinking. I forgot about this part.
Right. I'll go first just to give people some time. I'm really grateful for Jimmy. Just like takes the reins on the show anytime I have to gallivant out to Texas and start brainstorming with them Blue. It just it's awesome that this just keeps motoring and does not suffer in any way, shape, or form. Thank you, man. You're awesome.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
thank you.
I've got one now.
Go ahead.
I am collaborative I'm thankful, grateful for the collaborative spirit, because that's what we'll need to make EOS a success.
I had another line, I would be typing Overlord. Sorry. Luckily, I don't. So I don't sully your good reputation. Joshua, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm. This time, I'm going to say I'm grateful for the EOS community that it's here, that it exists, that there's so much potential that can be actualized, and to be honest, that it's a little bit of a challenge, you know, to do what needs to be done to go from like striving to thriving.
I like it.
Imagine if your proposal had to fit on one of these signs. We would only need 15 minutes for those elections.
I really like that strive to thrive thing. Sorry, just added that in there.
Yeah, it could be done. Like Chris's would say last time, eat in proxy.
I like it. We should totally put it. So Myra, I forgot to explain this part to you. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but every day Corey and I do a show and we come in here and we tell the world what we're grateful for. It can be big, it can be small. You can be grateful for a cup of coffee. You can be grateful for your family. You can be grateful for like Dan's book or EOS Eden, whatever you want.
I will be grateful for the friends, because I believe that everyone who now still stay in EOS is because the friendship they built. I believe I really appreciate all the friends, especially you, Jimmy, that, you know, we call all the time, we can be good again. It's like the EOS give us a chance to know each other, to have a time to catch up, to understand each other. So the platform, yes.
Right. I'm with you on that, actually.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually grateful for all my mentors in this space. Every single one of you, some way, has taught me something or mentored something for me. Myra, you know, back in the day when we worked together on projects, taught me a lot about media. Corey doing the show, you know, like taught me about like I don't do shows, or I didn't.
That's like who you are now. I don't do shows.
You know, meeting Chris and just like learning about like the importance of governance from him. You know, Joshua, like just stepping up and being there, like to induct both me and Corey into Eden on EOS, and of course, tons of other people in this space that have just, you know, kind of in a similar way to what Myra said, just have been there, become more than just, you know, people that you work with, but friends. Hey, can you fly there?
Fly where?
Right there.
What do you mean? I'm already here. How do I fly here?
No, can you fly up?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought maybe that was the reason I didn't finish it, was because I couldn't fly. I don't know.
Yeah, we're in Genesis there, home slice. It's all good. Honestly, I love this so much better. Like there's little reads on it now, and like it's just this goofy little thing Jimmy made with Misty and Crypto. Like this is a piece of history now. It's just baked in. Like I came back here just to take a picture of it because I think it's adorable as hell.
Yeah, fair enough. It was pretty sweet. So, but yeah, go ahead, fly around. I think people should see this. Oh, what happened to Myra? She dropped off. Maybe she'll come back. I was gonna ask her a question. She knew. She's like, I'm out of here. Jimmy's coming for me. So,
hard questions coming.
Right? No,
right?
I wanted to ask her a couple questions. Maybe she'll pop back in, and we can ask her that. But like, I thought it was like one of the questions I wanted. Oh, there she is. Sweet. There. Yeah. So Myra, I kind of wanted to ask you a question, and then you just disappeared. So I thought you knew it was coming. I wanted to ask you about I wanted to ask you about how you felt, because it was funny at the beginning of the election. Somebody said, one of the girls said, "Oh, I'm the only girl," and like I think Damien said, "No, no, Myra's here." And there was one other. But there were three girls in the election. And so I was curious, like, what do you think about that? Like, does it matter? Is it because crypto is mostly male dominated? Like, or I don't know, like, it just seems interesting to me. Or do you even care, right? Like, I wouldn't have even noticed, but, you know, the other girl said, "Oh, I'm the only girl." And, but it was like a weird, "I'm the only girl." I don't know what she meant.
I know. Yeah, actually, I've been asked a lot about this question. It's like, sometimes I went to events, let's say the panel speech, or, you know, there are 10 speakers. my personal never be a feminist myself. I'm more rebellion style. Like if people say you're a woman, you can't do governance, so I won't study more to understand better. But somehow with the people who know about me, like Jimmy, like the rest of the team, probably you can know me better, that all the success and achievements arrive here is because of hard working and dedication. It's not actually I'm a female. Actually trying to avoid that because every time people want to do a section of like, oh, how about do a woman panel, I just hate it. I would tag them, say, so what do you think, we're stupid enough to not involve in this discussion? Like I always attack them, so I know that I was even being found out by a lot of opportunity, because sometimes like I know girls, someone typical one, they like to use its advantages. I agree it's advantages. It's like one of my mentor used to say, like, beauty is the door. I agree. But somehow when you're going to the end, it's not about the girl, men and boys. It's actually about what kind of thing you can bring to the table, if you can be a great leader. Because for me, for myself as a female entrepreneur, I do feel like I care about employee more. I give people I can think about the point men maybe cannot think. So this is advantages being a female, because I can be more protective. I can be more caring. That's the advantages. Instead of being a girl, you can win something.
I was going to ask you to come on a couple months ago. I was going to ask you to come on this roundtable and do a women in crypto segment, but I learned my lesson because I asked some women in crypto art ladies if they wanted to do like a women in crypto art segment, and they yelled at me, and I had to like hide under my desk because they said the same thing. They're like, "What, do you think we can't compete with the men?" And I'm like, "No, that's not what I'm trying to like."
I get it. Yeah.
I also, Chris, please don't yell at me. I also at some point would like to do a Canadians in crypto segment, believe it or not, because like it was interesting. I was looking around that panel. There's a lot of, it seems like proportionally, there seems to be a lot of Canadians in Eden on EOS. And like even some of the Americans, like I think that they might be like, closet Canadians, like John Boyd, for example. Like there's no way he's American. He's like totally, he's too nice to be in there, right? Like, so what is it about Canadians, do you think? Because there seems to be a lot, right? And a lot of them are expats, like Dwayne's on there from CSX, right? You, me, Corey, just a ton of Canadians seem to be on there. What is it about like Eden that you think Canadians like might appeal to Canadians? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I've noticed it. I think in EOS, there happens to be a fair high proportion of Canadians, considering how small of a country Canada is and population-wise. We're only 36 million people. Like, we're tiny, physically huge. Population's tiny. I don't know. I mean, we're generally just awesome people, so maybe that's it, Humble. We're very humble as well.
Yeah, super duper humble. Like the humblest.
Just kidding. It would be fun, especially if you did it and we all had to use like our most extreme Canadian accent. No do to boot it. Hey, yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, fair enough. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting, how diversified that group of people was in a way, right? Like, and different people coming in for different reasons. So Josh, you said this to me as well. Like, I'm just kind of curious what you think about this on air. I think you said to me that it doesn't really matter whether you want to, argue your point and win, or whether you just want to participate. The participation thing is like the most important part. It's not necessarily about going through and, getting the funds and allocating them or arguing or winning. It's about, sharing your ideas and seeing if someone wants to adopt them. So I'm kind of curious, like there's going to be another trial election probably. I heard. Do you have any words of advice to, somebody who's out there who might be listening that like kind of feels like this process isn't for them, or they don't have time, or they just, think that they're not the type of person for it?
That's a good question. I would say at this point in time, like with the Genesis Eden, it is a experiment, and it does require some participation and time to sort of nurture the baby, as Chris was saying earlier. So it would be better if you were able to commit some time and participate in some way or form. And in the conversation that we had with Dan yesterday, he actually threw out a lot of great simple things that people can do that they may not realize, like, oh, this is actually very helpful to the cause, and it maybe doesn't require as much time as you think. But a lot of people don't really have time. They're busy doing stuff, building stuff, particularly in the EOS community. So if there is a balance of people that show up in Eden who can kind of get you what you need, connections or awareness or attention or funding, any of those kind of resources, if you can leverage those people to do that, I think that would be in your best interest. And then in that case, like let's say John Heater has a project and many Eden members are aware of it, and we're all planning to make sure that he gets what he needs for that. And so he shows up to the election with confidence that even if he doesn't go beyond that round, he's almost guaranteed to get what he needs for that project to go forward, because so many people want it, so many people are there where it's on the budget if they make it to whatever level, and I think that's pretty awesome, to feel like the community is pulling for you. I know this election had some of its quirks, and but I still kind of feel like the first one, my feeling was, I didn't advance past the first round. I voted for our whole room voted for Han to go on, and I felt like I won, and I showed up to be a candidate. I wasn't trying to be a strong candidate, but I felt like I won, even though I didn't necessarily win the game or anything like that. And even though I wasn't chosen to be leader of the board or won the money by sortition, I still feel like I won the way that the process played out, which is a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah,
Sorry. Can I add to that?
Yeah,
I just want to add to that a bit. Like the idea of winning is a very, first of all, like Eden kind of changes the definition of two words: voting, because this is not voting like we associate the traditional type of voting. I think we're better off to use the word delegating. And this is a community thing. So winning is about, as long as the community wins. Like that's, if we connect with this and we're a part of Eden as a community, then as long as we agree and are happy with the outcome, we all win. I mean, there is no individual winner in my opinion here. And the other thing I want to add about just the commitment and what it is, you can opt out of elections. So when you become an Eden member, there is zero pressure to actually participate in an election. If you are sufficiently pleased with how the process works and the outcome is good, you're happy with the outcome, you don't need to participate. By not voting, you are voting. If you opt out of an election, that's a vote. That means you trust the process. You don't need to have your voice heard, or you've spoken to someone else who's going to carry some of your ideas. That's okay. But what I would encourage is, we need people to join Eden to show that there's support. Right now, there's, Eden, the membership hasn't grown as fast as some people would have sort of predicted or anticipated. And that might be a good thing because we're getting quality people who are joining for the right reasons. But at the same time, if there's people in the community who think it's too much work or just can't be bothered, but that you care about EOS, reconsider that, because just get yourself into the door, become an Eden member, and you never have to participate in an election again. You can just opt out of all of them if you so choose, but at least put your support as another tick, another member to add, because we're at 151 active members right now. And, we want to be at like 1,000 before that was the original goal. And this was first released and Dan put out a roadmap in March. The first official election was to come after we reached 1,000 members. That's a ways out at this rate. So I think there's a lot of people on the fence who may be thinking it's too much work and whatever. Just, join to signal your support and opt out of all the elections if that's the case. You don't have to participate, but at least join.
it's kind of like being born in Canada. You never have to vote. Unlike those suckers down in Australia where they drag you to the polls screaming to vote for all the candidates that you hate. Right. Right? Like, I think that's interesting though. Like, I've had this debate with other people, right? Like to be forced to vote or to well, you know, not be able to vote in some countries. Speaking of, you know, Myra on the line, like there's that far spread, right? Like, there are countries that force you to vote. So I think you do bring up a good point, right? Like, you can come in, you can trust the process, and it is a process that you're trusting. But yeah, so we're gonna do these Eden. Corey and I, we kind of already decided maybe this first or second one in that we were gonna try to do one of these Eden on EOS roundtables every month. I think for the next one, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this. Definitely, Josh is coming back. We're going to dive into this voter proxy thing. That if you've been paying attention on what's going on in the Eden on EOS Telegram channel, there seems to be like kind of polar sides on this argumentative place, and I'm kind of, I see points on both sides actually, and I keep flipping.
Producer, right?
The block producer, yeah. I keep flipping back and forth on this, so I'm gonna try to find some people that are on both sides and bring them on, because it did get clarified that. I know you clarified it yourself, Chris, that it wasn't actually like an Eden it wasn't an Eden block producer, that like anyone could do this. And after you clarified that, things calmed down for a bit. And now people are saying, well, if anyone can do this, then like now there's no synchronicity between like anyone. And so I think maybe for the month of August,
one point of order, synchronicity.
Sure, that's a new word, right?
I just wanted to just double check. I'm over here reading your email anyway, so like I just wanted to if we're evolving these words in real time, we should put a little marker on those.
I thought it was pretty awesome when you popped that question on the block producer roundtable the other day.
Right, I think there's a lot to be said there. I know, like I know, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I know that like Genereos is kind of like, we're kind of a fan of it, and I think we like the idea even more of certain block producers being able to donate funds or allocate funds towards that. But I mean, Genereos is kind of its own kettle, because we do a lot of the rewards we do give back to the community in different ways, right? Like, we're on the verge now with Yoshi drops of releasing a new hashtag shameless plug number one. We're on the verge right now of doing a collaborative effort with Yoshi Drops right now called Generous, whereby we're going to do a box drop, and pretty much all of the profits are going to be matched up to a certain amount of EOS from Genereos block rewards to be able to plant a bunch of trees through oneseed.org, which kind of resonates with what Yoshi Drops is doing with carbonfund.org as well. So that's pretty cool, right? And so I think like the idea behind Genereos is like, if we could allocate some of our funds towards governance, then that might not be a bad idea in the future. So that's kind of the one side of it. But the other side of it is kind of like, well, I mean, maybe that's not good, because, I think we really need to explore this on the next roundtable, is all I'm saying. So Joshua, I'm hoping to have you back, maybe Chris as well, Myra as well some other time. Please come on. Now that we've got you out of your shell, you're definitely going to have to come and join me and Corey, and we're going to have to get the rundown on being a tech whiz in China, because I know that's what you do and what you excel at. But yeah, thank you. If you guys have any final comments, please shoot, or questions for Corey, because he looks kind of bored up there.
I have some final conclusion I want to say, because since everyone opened the chat box, so we do feel it. For example, Joshua, you mentioned like in that panel, Han is fell, but I do feel sad. Like, for example, like Han, like EOS Nation, like Myra, like we are actually confirmed the leaders for years because we're always there doing things. If I know if Han is feeling and Han English is good, I do feel like there's never be a chance to actually bonus the people who really do the stuff, because I'm open marketing company in China for blockchain company. I have really big clients, and what we do in crypto space, there are two things really important. One is community, one is social media. Okay, so when Chris you talk about like maybe small quantity of people is good, probably we're just cheating ourselves for one reason. We didn't broadcast the news out. We didn't attract the outside, the new blood, the elected people out into use. We're only like playing inside ourselves. The information are different. There's no any, I work with all the China social media. There's no any social media doing any report about anything on Eden at all. Because other people may paying or other thing may interesting or they know how to do it. The medium never pay attention to you. So that's the reason our market cap won't grow bigger. So somehow for us, we have all the Telegram, Eden EOS, another Eden EOS group, and pin in the top. Somehow for me, it's difficult to catch up. Or where's the time? How is the procedure? I try my best to arrange a translator to translate the Chinese version now. But somehow we do still feel it's difficult to catch up, and it's difficult to broadcast, and there's no budget for broadcast this news. So that's what I said, marketing and the community is really important, because otherwise we're only playing ourselves instead of let people think, oh, this is an interesting thing, it's a concept, because there's no any medium who ever broadcasts anything about us. So I do think we need to improve that in the future. So you will see how important the energy, the power of KOL, the power of social media.
I completely agree. I mean, that's like it's attention, right? I mean, that without attention and increasing the size of our community, we're just a bunch of nerds talking to each other. It's been that way for a long time.
Because
right?
I only see. I agree.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Myra.
I only see decrease of the community. I start with 30,000 community member. Now and do you have any idea when this time we fell, but also the wrong communication, and all the admin will say, okay, let's start our community to the other blockchain project, because even if it's like, oh, we're being ignored, we don't being cared at all. So it's like we're not only expanding, we're also diminish this, suddenly will disappear. So we really need to play outside instead of only us. I'm tired. I really think we need to do outside, so people understanding what are we doing instead of we're only playing in the box.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I just want to say I totally agree. We've got to talk to the outside world, and there's so many talented people that would thrive in EOS if we just put out like a bat signal and and welcome them. We do have I feel some damage and reputation control that we have to mitigate. Like if somebody goes into one of those Telegram groups, maybe not yours, Myra, but the Eden on EOS one, which is growing, but I mean, people are fighting about a second random Eden BP in there today or yesterday, and it's not very conducive to helping people discover Eden on EOS. You know what I mean? Like in just proper marketing and user experience and stuff. We've with Eden and with EOS, we've got to get that dialed in a little bit more, or leverage the things that people already have dialed in a lot more, and maybe adapt some of those principles and the way things are, for example, operating in Asia. We could adapt that a little bit more into the more English speaking or the other languages. I'm all about it, and I'm optimistic that Eden may become something that does draw in like another 9,000 something people who are not on EOS right now, and they may be the type of people that EOS needs, like marketers and people who can do proper public relations and can combat all the troll activity that seems to happen in Telegram and on Twitter and stuff like that.
Exactly. Do you have any idea? Let's say if I need to put Chris on a panel on a right now it's Shanghai blockchain events. If I need to put Chris or Joshua or Jimmy to do the panel, to do the events, no matter online, offline, you need to pay the bill. So marketing is important. If in all the blockchain events, it's been 2 years in all the blockchain events, don't have EOS because Cardano, all the Tron, all the Polkadot especially, they're paying so much marketing and KOL. That's the EOS don't do.
Yeah, I just realized Dan missed something really big in his whole thing. The thing that he missed, I think, is that when you look at overall crypto sentiment and you look at EOS sentiment in Asia, there's nothing wrong. People in Asia love EOS. They really like it a lot. They use it. They're fans of it. There's almost zero FUD. The majority of the FUD from EOS is in the West. It doesn't really happen that much in the East. And if we look at the amount of Chinese block producers and community that are actively engaged in EOS, and going back to what Myra said earlier, yeah, it's great. The one good thing about Eden is we could take that and we could say, okay, let's do an Eden on EOS in China. And that's okay. But what would be even better is if there was a Chinese, almost like a regional Olympics of Eden on EOS, right? Let's say you have a North American Eden on EOS, and then you have a European Eden on EOS, and then you have a East Asian and Arabian Eden on EOS. And then those 4 people who win that Eden on EOS, they become the council members for the global Eden on EOS, protocol and the way that it goes forward. So you could have someone like Myra who wins, the East Asian one, and somebody like Chris or who wins the North American one, and somebody like Ami who wins like the Middle Eastern one. And then you get those 3 or 4 people in a room together to figure out a way to disperse those funds. That to me actually makes a lot more sense, because the problem right now with Eden on EOS is it's very North American and American centric, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's gonna end up being a little bit disproportionate, in my humble opinion, thinking about this right now. I'm sure there might be problems with my idea because it just kind of popped into my head while Myra's speaking, but I kind of feel like this needs to be a thing, right? Like because there's people have different ideas of what's happening. And this is one area that I will actually commend the East Asian EOS communities for, is they never actually, they were a little bit annoyed with Block One, but they weren't the same as the North American or the European communities that like felt shunned by Block One for not getting the funding, for not getting the marketing. They just did what they do best, and they went and they figured out how to make this technology work for them, right? They figured out like how to grind deep and to get it into their communities. A lot of people in the West gave up because they were just like, oh, Block One's not going to fund us. They're doing crappy shit. They're not talking to us. Their voice isn't working, all of this other stuff, right? And so people who FUD the East Asian community or the Asian like EOS block producers as being a cartel, just remember this. They actually, a lot of them work really hard for their keep, right? If you look at somebody like EOS Asia, who's been like hand in hand with EOS Nation from day one, building out EOSX, building out a DeFi platform. Yeah, it got hacked, but look what we learned from that EOS, right? Look what we learned from that hack, right? Like, look what we learned from the overall community. So I don't know, maybe next time I run, I got a 3-point platform. Let's bring the East and West together. Let's build a plug and play app that works, that could maybe extend to like a globalized Olympic level and world domination for me and Corey. That's kind of It's always got to be world domination for me and Corey. That's
I really love that you like went on a really long journey and came back around to the important stuff. That's good. That's solid. Yeah, I just messaged to Sean in the comments too. Having a certain amount of the RAM fee, or even a distribution or whatever, going into funding marketing and expansion groups. Whether it's working with Myra or working with Cryptowriter. Not that we're biased, but it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, a lot of the community will take those kinds of things on and do them themselves. But I mean, like the actual price of the token, the value that is this network, is going to be defined by the number of humans and the number of active wallets, period. Right? So like not focusing on that is absurd. Like it's idiotic, right? Like let's not be weird about it. Like that, like not spending any energy at all on actually showing people and telling people about this amazing new technology as a function of the distribution of the token is insane. It's easily the lowest hanging fruit, other than giving all the money to me and Jimmy through Chris Barnes so that we can do the world domination thing. That would also be good. But the marketing should come first. Maybe.
Right.
Well, as long as the world domination thing involves bringing some new blood into EOS, I think we'll
see, that's all it took, Jimmy. That's all it took. Like we'll bring 100,000 people. Also, we're the overlords now, but the 100,000 people.
I do want to clarify one thing that Sean's commenting on. So it looks so originally the roadmap was like once we get to 1,000 members, we'll do an official election, and that's when the funding will be there. But it's looking like we're not going to wait till that point, and the first official election may actually happen in September with significant funding. I'm not promising that, but I'm just telling you from what I'm hearing from what was said yesterday on the conversation with Dan that will be posted. He seems very confident about many different sources of funding, and it doesn't seem like we're going to wait to get to a large membership, because he wants people to trust the process. And it's not about how many members we have or even how many participate in the election. It's about the process doing what it's supposed to do and people trusting the process. That's what Dan seems to think is the critical thing that everyone needs to sort of comprehend and believe in, is the process.
Put me on that next call, because you can't have a process that works with a global protocol where it's all based off of English in one time zone. That's all I'm saying.
There will be other ones. That's never been the plan.
Right? No, and I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying, I trust Dan enough to know that I do believe that he evolves his process. But Corey and I talk about this a lot, right? Like we get into these conversations about process, and then people get upset because the process hasn't been followed. And the whole industry that we're in should be adaptive. It should be looking at things and figuring things out and porting new ideas and other ideas. And I see this everywhere, right? Like obviously I'm close to it in our projects, but I see it in Eden as well, right? Like people are getting like infuriated about this BP thing, right? Like in the channel, and some people who aren't even Eden members, which is fair enough. But like I just think that like maybe we need to, I don't know, like you bring up a really good point. Again, I'm not trying to be like the negative one here, but maybe the 1,000 members was there for a reason. If we run this with 250 members, and it shits the bed, what happens then? I don't want to be that guy that like comes down on it. But if we run it with 250 members and then the process doesn't work, where do we go from there, right? Like, what's the backup plan? I'm not really sure.
Well, speaking about evolving the process, one thing Dan mentioned yesterday that may be going into the bylaws and the software is only 5% of the Eden treasury can be used. I don't know if it's per year. Is that what he said yesterday, or per election?
I think it's monthly. So there's basically once the Eden treasury is filled from whatever source that might be, could be a block one donation, could be RAM fees, could be some inflation from block producers. That's all going to be hard coded into the smart contracts, along with the election process itself. Because Jimmy, a lot of the issues that you spoke about and automate, that's all going to be smart contract. It's all going to be through our EOS wallets. We're going to be randomized through smart contract. We're going to receive Zoom links through smart contract. We're going to vote through smart contract, all through our EOS account. So all of that is going to be streamlined. There's going to be none of this Google Doc.
So I should
China.
So I should clarify that, because like I wasn't trying to complain about that earlier, but I did hear that. So yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up. The next election, your vote will actually be on chain, right? Like it will, you will actually go on chain with your wallet, with your registered wallet that is at your account, and you will sign that contract, which is the way that it should be, really.
Yeah, all on chain, and then you can look back, right? We're going to be able to look back and see who voted for what. And you'll have links to the videos. It'll be far more transparent and then scalable, of course, right? But I don't know what I was going to say. But what I was going to say before my internet chopped out, and Myra, you were speaking, is just this idea of more content and trying to bridge some of this gap in advertising. And I know part of our mandate with Josh and myself and this final board is to try to create more content and do more outreach. So I will touch base with you after this. But if there's anything that we can do, like I don't speak Chinese or anything, I'm not super useful, but I mean, if there's particular types of videos that could be translated, that would be useful. You know, I think I do that. If there's written content that would be useful, that you could help with translating. But I definitely, whatever the best method of outreach in your community, whatever that is, I'm all ears to try to help create that. And if it's, like I say, if we can do certain videos that help break down the process a little more, and if there's a certain time length, or if there's certain graphics that the Chinese community likes to see, I'll throw that into the video. I'm learning how to do video editing. So if I can help create some content that's useful for you, I want to work with you to do that.
If I already have some budget because we can put in our own social media, but we're not KOL, we don't influencer. If we already have some budget, if someone already win, who can pay a KOL or bigger, social medium, like, I don't know, Cointelegraph, to let other social medium to post something about Eden, use the budget who win before. That's the only way to achieve the goal of 1,000 or 500. Otherwise, we're still playing indoor.
Okay, understood. Yeah, that will be harder to achieve at this point in time. But next election, and then back to the funding piece. So what'll happen is, we need more money to do things. And how that'll work then is, once the Eden Treasury is funded, there's an official election. There will only be a 5% distribution that'll be in the smart contract, that each layer that's receiving funding. So the way it works is the top representative will receive 5%. Then the next below, or it's 5% in total. And then the top will receive say there's 4 levels that receive funding. So the top will receive 1/4 of that 5%. The next round will receive 1/4 split amongst the individuals to receive that. The next will receive 1/4 split amongst that larger number of people. So each layer down will individually receive less EOS, but the max that will be drawn from the treasury every month will just be 5% of its total. So it'll never be like, I win, I want to work with Jimmy and Corey to take over the world, so I'm going to pull all the money and we're going to implement our master plan. And sorry, Eden, you lost, right? I win my big master plan to be this figurehead and pretend to be nice.
It wouldn't last very long,
Little
but it'd
did
be
they
really
know.
funny.
It would just make me and Corey like string this out over 12 months. We just have to, work on the ruse. It wouldn't just be a one-time thing.
And when we failed spectacularly and hilariously, and the system worked, it would just have been a massive marketing campaign that would be really funny and engaging, and we should get paid for.
Yeah. Right? So the definition of Eden failing is I think it's not clean. It's not clear. So is it that someone who gets in at the top you don't like? Okay. Well, what damage can they do? What if a bad actor gets to the top? What damage can they do? Well, they're only going to be able to pull out 1/4 or 1/3 of 5% every month, and it's monthly, and then we can there's gonna be a lot of eyeballs once it's major funding. A lot of people are looking, and there's a lot of expectation of transparency. And if they're doing shady things and they're pulling funds out, we're gonna know, and we can call a snap election. So the ability to call a snap election in advance of the officially scheduled elections is there. So the risk of being corrupted and gamed and then Eden fails is very low, and Dan is
that's
brilliant,
really
right. He's
that's
all over
why the
this.
joke
He wants to make this work.
Yeah, that's why the world domination joke I feel is so much fun and so good, because it's absurd and it wouldn't work, right? It's hilarious,
so.
but like I completely agree. Like everything I've heard about this, it seems really anti-fragile. Sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
No, finish.
That was it. I just interrupted you, so I wanted to apologize.
No, you weren't interrupting. I wanted. You said it better than me, actually, because I was going to say, for me, the definition of Eden on EOS failing is when everyone agrees. When everyone agrees unconditionally with what is happening, that's failure in my eyes. Because that's no longer governance, that's a freaking cult. And I know cults because I'm part of one, right? But no, like I think that there's something that resonates there, right? Like because if everything that happens in Eden is unilaterally non-disputable, that's failure to me, right? Because this is supposed to be a governance process that is interactive, where people have this motive to be able to propose what they think is right. And if there ever becomes a day or a month or a year where everyone's just like, oh yeah, let's do this, I'm not going to throw shade into any projects, but there have been projects in the EOS space that is, kind of delimited to that. And I think for me, that would be what failure would be, I think.
I see a question here from Morton Matt D. Are there any monthly or yearly dues to join Eden? So the way that works is when you become a member, there's a 10 EOS fee. So that's your initial entry fee, 10 EOS. It goes directly to the Eden Treasury to be used by members who get voted up and will use that fund. So that's not going to Dan's pocket or anything. That's going to the Eden Treasury. And then after that, there are dues for each election. So the elections are anticipated to be every 6 months. And the due, so you can opt out. You don't have to participate, opt in or out. But regardless, a member is expected to have some skin in the game and pay a due per election. And that amount is supposed to be, currently it's 10 EOS, but it's supposed to represent about 3 hours of minimum wage, which I know is subjective based on your jurisdiction. So that the amount is not really fixed yet. This is being debated how it should be. If EOS is worth $100, paying 10 EOS per election would be fairly steep for a lot of people. So obviously that has to be scalable. And it was meant to represent just 3 hours of minimum wage, whatever that is. So there will be some ongoing fees, but they're meant to be very nominal. And hopefully the output of what Eden can do and where the more substantial funding can go will certainly make up for any individual cost by EOS price appreciation, right? I mean, this is the whole point here, is we're trying to build the EOS ecosystem. So,
and again, for anyone out there, who doesn't want to buy into our, plans for world domination, another great proposal for Eden on EOS would be essentially, being able to have a funding mechanism whereby people from jurisdictions that this isn't a 3-hour wage could participate, right? Like I would love to see people from Guatemala, or Venezuela even. Like, I mean, Venezuela, I think Venezuela, EOS people do okay, if I'm honest. But like, even some of these places that like have an EOS stronghold, Venezuela obviously being one of them, it's one of the most used places for EOS in the world, it seems to me anyway. And some sort of funding mechanism that could actually provide people with the ability to become part of this whole structure. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, that might happen. There might be a piece of the more a richer side of the Eden membership that will then donate and help fund some of those from other parts of the world who don't have as much money, right? Maybe we can help fund them. And there's going to be a lot of self-funding, like beyond just asking for RAM fees or inflation or block one donations. Eden is going to work on this idea of being self-funded, and perhaps some of this self-funding mechanisms, either the proxy can generate funds or the BP, maybe those funds don't just have to go to the Eden coffer. Maybe they go to helping promote and support other Eden members from less wealthy parts of the world. Anything's possible.
One of my favorite people on the Cryptowriter podcast is Joe. Joe does his own show on NFTs where he interviews artists. And in his words, his humor is very self-deprecating. And it makes me smile a little bit. But I kind of feel like we need a meme for Phantom Puppeteers. A comment. I think people should rush to join Eden while it is still cheap to afford 10 EOS. And I think a meme on that posted all over social media. Join EOS now before EOS price rises, right? Like that would be great. Like we totally need that. Yeah, that would be awesome. I like it. Yeah, so as the comments state, here is the thing. We do have a thing. Come check me out next Monday because I'm going to be on Adam Carswell's show. That's going to be fun. It's called Here's the Thing with Jimmy D. And I'm pretty excited about that because Adam's one of my favorite people in space. And Corey and I will be live tomorrow, twice actually. We're going to have NFT Game Day ×2, which is going to be super fun with people that we really love and respect. And we'll be back here next week with another roundtable. But I think for today, we're going to wrap this up. Yeah, like all of you panelists that are here with us today, please come back to the roundtable. Come on our show. Introduce yourselves a little bit more. You know, Chris, we've had you, but we'd love to have you back again. Myra, we definitely want you over for an exclusive, and Joshua as well. You know, I just want to dive deep into that brilliant brain of yours because I think that there's a lot going on there that the world needs to become aware of, actually, if I'm honest.
It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
So,
and really nice to meet you, Myra.
Thank you, everyone. Stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, bye.